Hi. So, confidence as an artist, or rather, confidence in your work as an artist. When does that come around? You know, they call it imposter syndrome. There are so many different terms to talk about confidence in a profession or any profession, right? And the first time I got it was in high school. I got it in high school when I used to make my works for my assessments or for my final assessment. That was my first sort of professional graduation. So I got it then. I made quite a few works that I was proud of making, and I got the accolades for that as well. So it started then, but it just didn't feel concrete enough to me. I didn't feel like I had um, made it. And that's because in my head, being a successful artist means um, shaking someone up. Okay, what does that mean? Being a successful artist for me means somebody feels what what I want them to feel or something totally unexpected, but they still feel something. It's not like you view a work and like, oh wow, that's so pretty, that's so beautiful. The technique is on point, the finesse is on point. All of that is beautiful. I love hearing that because then I know that critically I'm doing a good job. But I, at the end of the day, it's the heart to heart conversation that I like to have. Because why else am I doing this otherwise, right? If I'm not able to evoke an expression out of the audience I'm catering to, then what's the point of doing this? Yeah, so yeah, the first time I got critical acknowledgement or whatever you want to call it was in high school. I had my art teacher assess my works, and she appreciated me and she saw my progress as a student, and she was really proud of how I had worked hard to get where I was. But the first time I feel like I got I felt confident. I felt proud. I felt proud before, but I felt confident that yes, I do have it in me to continue to be a true influencer at heart. This word influencer goes around being used as a very tacky, pretentious, cringe term or profession, but well, I'm using it clearly as a philosophical, like deep personality trait, because that's something which I've always, I guess, wanted to do. I wanted to somehow influence somebody's way of feeling, not thought process. People are going to think how they want to think. They've been raised differently. They have different circumstances that influence the way they have certain opinions. But if I can just influence somebody to feel a certain emotion, that's it. I'm the happiest person on the planet. Um, so yeah, the first time that happened was last year, actually. I really thought that'll happen when I did my first graduation exhibition at the end of my university. That was a great response, by the way. Everybody loved it. People also had a great experience with my conceptual work, so thumbs up to that one. Um, but I think the real emotional experience I saw and felt was last year when I completed my first Devi painting. It's an artwork, again, not thought out, not planned, not sketched, nothing. It was a blank piece of paper, me using my oil paints because I was desperate to use my oil paints. I feel like I was away from them way too long. Um, I'm just putting something on the piece of paper. This sounds really, really glorified, but it was really that simple. It was a piece of paper, me looking at my oil paints, and just trying to make something on. So here's something I do in my practice or whenever I do paint. Um, I randomly pick colors. Okay, so I'm not a person who draws or sketches out and plans. The way I do my planning, I guess, is I blindly pick colors um, from my from my art palette. I blindly pick colors and I take the colors and I stick to them throughout the work. I don't get rid of them or I don't add a new color in between the work. If I say, okay, for example, for the Devi painting, I picked a scarlet red. So I picked crimson, I picked uh, cerulean blue, so blue, I picked white and yellow ochre. Okay, these four shades. I picked these four shades and I did the entire work. And I was like, I'm not picking any other thing. Whatever I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make it with this. Okay, I'm not gonna take the assistance of a green or something. These are the four colors I'm gonna use, and I'm gonna stick to that. And that's how I started that work. And I started with painting the page, going about it basically. Um, and I started drawing the facial features, the eyebrows, the eyes, the nose, and mouth, and everything. And when I was making that work, I spent a lot of time perfecting the features specifically. I was very adamant at perfecting the technique of the work because I felt like that's all I really had at that point. I couldn't think of an idea, right? So I was just perfecting the technique at making the lips more realistic, making the nose more appealing, that sort of stuff. So because I was so focused on getting the technique correct, and I got also lost somewhere because that happens to me every time. It's my meditation, right? So I do tend to just zone out for a long time, and I worked on it, and then I completed it. That was it. That was finally. It felt complete. In a way, I had to put a stop to it. I had to be like, okay, that's it. It's complete now. You're not touching this anymore. And I sort of posted that on Instagram. So it's on my Instagram page. Please to have a look. The first response I got from my audience was my sister. She she saw that and she immediately sent me a long message, and that's when I felt like I got my confidence. Even right now I'm saying it and I'm getting tiny goosebumps while saying it. But that was the first time somebody told me the impact my art had made on them, and that was a really proud moment for me because I felt like, yes, finally something I'm doing feels worth it. It feels like I'm making a difference. Um, and here's what she said. Okay, I mean, I'm not reading it. I'm just paraphrasing what she said. She told me that the painting made her feel a sense of peace. Peace. The painting gave her a sense of peace. Um, and it symbolized the peace that exists after fighting a battle. you know After you fight a battle, you fight this crazy battle, and you gain this strength at the end of it because you fought it and you won the battle. And because of that strength, you're now at peace. That's what she took out of that work. And that completely, like, I was spellbound when I heard that, because when I made it, I wasn't thinking about it. I was just making something. I was just making a face and trying to make sure that the eyes look realistic and the mouth looks appealing to look at. I didn't really think about the emotional reception from that work at all. And she told me that it gives strength. It gives peace in strength. And that's very important. And that's also the definition of a woman. And that's why sort of named that painting the Divine Feminine because it really felt like some element of divinity had probably entered my thought process, and that's the only way I could produce something like that.